busted in. We broke down the door, we came to win. TLA Season 4, it's a whole new game. We the agents of change, whole new scope with a whole new range. It didn't exist, so we built our own lane. We all knew the risk, it's a cold-ass game. But first and foremost, we reppin' the fans because we nothing but fans living out our dreams. Crossing the pond with these 32 teams. There's only one road and there's only 5 kings.
Thank you for visiting 32 Kings Road, hosted by the League Ambassadors. I'm Ambassador Kenny Ken, and it is my pleasure to be here today with my brothers. This is episode 78 of our podcast, and as a reminder, you can follow us everywhere on social media. Our handle is @TheLeagueAM. Also, please check out our website, theleagueam.com. Shout out to Chief Diplomat Nick Blackman, who is riding high off of the spectacular
Tell him what it is, Nutso.
Regular season of the Baltimore Ravens. Also, happy birthday to Chief Diplomat Nick Blackman as well. Also, please follow us on our YouTube channel, League Ambassadors. Please subscribe to and rate our channel there. We've got a good show today. We're going to continue our NFL's worst 100 countdown. Looking at the worst players in the franchises of the Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers, Indianapolis Colts, and San Francisco 49ers. We will also feature our S. Carter collection. We've got a Brexit boot bag winner as well, and we've got some game picks to make. But first, Junior Blue, good to see you, sir. What you sipping on?
Well, the only thing I'm really sipping on is the fact that my Raiders are not ready for prime time. That's all I got to say.
That's all you got to say. 2 weeks in a row, combined score of 74-12.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Dad, that's not your story.
No, it's not. And, two things. One, I'm sipping on the fact that in this calendar year, we've had double doinks. We've had a weird noise in my ear. We've also had the Patriots cut 3 or 4 kickers this year.
Right.
We've had people miss extra points to lose games. And I'm just thankful that we have Justin Tucker, the best kicker on the planet, that we can trot out there and use as a weapon in rain, sleet, or snow to win games like we did Saturday. Shout out to Mike. With the 49ers taking that hot L, dropping all the way down to 5th place. And then just really quick, there's a big fight coming on this Saturday. Everybody, if you have the zone, please peep it out. We will definitely be talking about it next week, but it could change the landscape of boxing if it goes either way.
I'm sipping on some water given my physical travails. I've been fighting for my life. So we're just going to have some room temperature water today. And I'm also sipping on the folly of one Freddie Kitchens. First of all, coming into the weekend, in the rematch against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns was spotted out at a movie theater with a Pittsburgh Started It t-shirt, which was making reference to the first matchup between the two teams and the Myles Garrett fiasco. And when asked about it, said, hey, it was a shirt that my daughters, he blamed his daughters. My daughters gave it to me. And if I had to do it all over again, I would wear it. Okay. But then today, it's reported that linebacker Chris Smith, and for those of you, Chris Smith, there's a million Chris Smiths running around, but this particular linebacker, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, he was the gentleman whose girlfriend was murdered right in front of him in a tragic car accident. Their car stalled on the freeway, and they were standing outside of the car, and she was murdered. And they have a newborn daughter, and at that time, 4 weeks old. Yeah, Freddie Kitchens cut him today. And this is a league where, you've got Ryan Shazier, who, suffered a severe spinal injury in the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's still employed with them today. There are numerous examples of teams looking out for their quote unquote brothers. I remember even when this happened to Chris Smith, Freddie Kitchens talked about the significance and the importance of family. So, Mr. Kitchens, John Dorsey, by extension, you guys are really blowing it up. So that's what I'm sipping on. Kev, what you sipping on, sir?
Gentlemen, first off, Kenyon, I congratulate you for being able to hold down water. I'm simply just trying to inhale and exhale without it coming out of both ends. I too experienced the double dragon over the weekend. I had Dracarys on this ear, Viserys on this ear, and they was tugging my hands. It was rough. It was rough. But to Devin's point, real quick, before we get into our main topic, I do just want to add that this past weekend in the NFL was proof that Mother Nature and Father Time are a power couple, and all they do is fuck and go on vacations. And my point is that there are some teams in this league that can play in inclement weather. There's some all-stars, Hall of Famers who are showing their age, but as winter comes around, we're going to see, what these teams in the NFL are made about. So to get into our main topic for tonight, we're going to focus on a Mr. Daniel Constantine Marino Jr., a.k.a. the great quarterback Dan Marino. As the last few days, or the first week of December, is very relevant to the days in history of his career accomplishments. Run through a few dates for y'all. December 2nd, 1984, Dan Marino broke the NFL single-season touchdown pass record, throwing his 37th touchdown pass in a loss to the Lessons Raiders. He threw 48 total in the season. December 1st, 1991, he set a record with over 3,000 passing yards for the 8th time in his career. On December 1st, just 2 days ago, Patrick Mahomes broke Marino's record for the fastest quarterback to throw 70 career touchdowns. And in an interview early this year, Dan Marino had said that the game is much easier for quarterbacks to succeed or put up big numbers today. So my first question to you gentlemen regarding Mr. Marino is that because the quarterback position now is being judged by big numbers and ultimately Super Bowl rings, Dan Marino doesn't have one. Do you think that at the pace that quarterback records are currently being broken in the NFL, could Dan Marino's legacy one day soon be overshadowed because of that?
I mean, I think it depends on how. This generation tends to have recency bias, and if you are looking at the numbers without taking everything else into consideration, it definitely could be possible. I mean, we already overlook anything that anybody did in the NBA from the 70s. We already overlooked that. They even tried to overlook things that Michael Jordan has done. And Dan Marino and Michael Jordan aren't the same to their sport. So I definitely think that it's possible. But I mean, the biggest question is if he played today, what would happen? And I think we all agree some of those records would be untouchable.
I think it will happen, and the reason you take him throwing for 5,000 yards. At that time, it was unheard of. To use your NBA, you still look at somebody like Wilt Chamberlain averaging 30 rebounds. No matter how old I am or how old my kids are, if they look at someone averaging 30 rebounds a game, they're going to be like, oh, he was a beast. He was a monster. He was a legend. But with Dan Marino, now you have, let's take his 5,000-yard season. You have someone like Drew Brees who has 4 or 5 5,000-yard seasons. You have Peyton Manning. You have Patrick Mahomes, who have had over 5,000-yard seasons with 50 touchdowns. So that kind of trumps and less interceptions than he had his MVP season. So if these quarterbacks keep doing these type of things, it will lessen his effect because 5,000 yards won't mean the same 10 years from now as it does today.
I think that, I think football, first of all, is cyclical. And I think we certainly are in a prime time in terms of, passing the football with the spread offense. But I think what we're seeing and we're seeing it with teams like Baltimore and San Francisco, particularly, there is a cycle, there's a movement that's happening where running the football is going to become a thing. And even not just running the football, but sort of starting to build your offense around the talents of your quarterback. So I think 5,000 yards passing will always be a benchmark. I think Marino will always be relevant because no other quarterback except for Patrick Mahomes has had the start to their career that Dan Marino did. And so I think that alone will be enough to keep him relevant. And I think one of the things that we're going to get into is sort of what is the legacy of Marino. But I think you can't talk about Marino without talking about, how fast of a start he got into his career. And I think that alone is what will keep him relevant. Even the quarterbacks that you've named, I believe Matthew Stafford has thrown for 5,000 yards once. Drew Brees is the only one that has done it multiple times. So I don't think it's something that will become the norm. And I think it'll always be a standard. So that'll keep him relevant.
It's funny you say that that it's cyclical and that things are changing. You say success from the teams that are winning right now. But football in December and January hasn't changed. And people are seeing how these teams are winning normally, and they still try to do the other shit. It's almost like going back to basketball. All these teams started shooting threes when Golden State was shooting threes, and now all these teams that don't have three of the best shooters ever were shooting more threes than Golden State, and wonder why they're losing. So it's funny that happens, but I mean, I think Kevin, I mean, you probably have the next question, which is, why isn't he revered, or some of the things that he didn't accomplish in his career? I think there's reasons for that.
Yeah, well, to compare him to his contemporaries, or at least the names you guys brought up, Mahomes, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, where would you rank Dan Marino's 1984 MVP season against any other quarterback's MVP season? Because, well, I'll let you guys get into the numbers, but yeah, he was pretty retarded. But where would you guys rank that all time?
To me, it's the greatest quarterback season of all time still. They went 14-2, first of all. And as was already been mentioned, in 1984, he threw for 5,000 yards. And by every metric, completion percentage, the only thing is, touchdowns, which Mahone has him at touchdowns. But as far as everything else, Marino is still the standard. And so for me, it is that's the single best quarterback season of all time. No question.
For me, I would rank it 1B, only behind Steve Young's 1994 season, because not only did he pass for, close to 4,000 yards and had over 35 touchdowns, he ran for 10, and they won the Super Bowl in emphatic fashion. Marino, I would put B just because he didn't finish it off, and they got beat by not the same 49ers, but the same club. But
name a Hall of Famer that was on that team.
I get that. But the one thing I will say about Marino's year is that was a completely different era, and nobody was doing that, and you could touch and molest the receivers. So he had 2,000-yard receivers in the Marx Brothers, but he didn't finish the job.
I actually have Marino's just because of the time of the era. Because strictly off numbers, I mean, who had a better season than Peyton Manning's 5,500 yards, 55 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions? But as far as it being 1984, I mean, it's a whole nother era where people weren't doing that. You at that time, it was you were happy to have your quarterback pass for 3,000 yards and have a 50% completion percentage.
Right.
And he blew that all out the water.
Well, Les, you bring up history, and this is one of the more interesting things I want to get from you guys get through you guys, and then I'll give you mine. What, outside of the obvious, Dan Marino never won in the Super Bowl, what do you think is the biggest, what if, whether it be a scenario, any situation in his career that either could have changed things, or if you look at it a different way, we'd have a different perspective about Marino or just the NFL in general?
Health.
Could you imagine if he didn't fall down the draft board because of a recreational drug use? Could you imagine if he had got drafted to Philadelphia, where they had Ron as their quarterback, who was hurt the season before, went 3-9, and never had a season above 500 again? With that defense coming in, I mean,
I just wish he would have been healthy. What if he was just healthy in the 90s? I mean, because again, Dan Marino was that guy.
Yeah, that release is stupid. I think for me it comes down to the fact that he never really had a running game to go with that or a defense. And if you look at the other great quarterbacks, like I think it was in 2011, up to that point, right after Favre retired, Brady, Favre, and Peyton were 16 and 36 if their team rushed in fewer than 50 yards. But they were 111 when they rushed for over 150, and the Dolphins rushed for 53 yards a game in his 10 playoff losses. And the defense gave up 34.5 points a game. And Pro Football Reference did a study analyzing QB's rushing and defensive support. And Dan Marino, he went 8-10 as a starter in the playoffs, but they said he only should have won 5.6 games. So he actually overachieved, and that's with him having to play Jim Kelly in the Bills, Montana in the Super Bowl, and basically he won the winner or the representative from the Super Bowl 6 times in his playoff career.
Yeah, I kind of went along the lines of what Les was saying, but not necessarily to Philly. I was thinking that what if the Steelers had drafted him at 21 instead of Gabriel Rivera, who played a total of 6 games, rest in peace, but due to Kenyon's regulations, I couldn't include him in that.
Yeah, that made this shit hard.
Yeah.
Hey, but think about it. In 83 was Bradshaw's last season. So after Bradshaw retired, they went 21 years until they got a quarterback that won more than 2 playoff games, of course, that being Ben Roethlisberger. But then Marino with that organization, with Chuck Noll, with Bill Cowher, Rod fucking Woodson on the defense, in that organization what the Steelers been able to accomplish. And then I kind of went deep into this rabbit hole, but just hang with me for a second. The Jets drafted quarterback Ken O'Brien 3 picks before. This motherfucker played D2 college football. Got drafted before Dan Marino. I thought, what if the Broncos drafted Marino 4th instead of Chris Hinton? Then Denver never trades for John Elway. The Bears, I wish Omar was here for this, drafted Willie Galt, wide receiver at 18. The Bears would have finally had their franchise quarterback. Patriots drafted Tony Easton, and quarterback Tony Easton that round. They wouldn't have needed Drew Bledsoe 10 years later, which means the legend of Tom Brady wouldn't necessarily worked out that way. And of course, I think with any of these teams, Dan Marino probably would have won the Super Bowl. But here we are. And the last question I have for you guys is just flat out, is Dan Marino in your top 5 quarterbacks of all time?
Absolutely.
I think it's not a question of if he's in the top 5. I think a better question is where does he
Your
rank?
top 5.
Where does he rank in one's top 5? I mean, he's in all of our top 5. Are you saying he's not in your top 5, Kevin?
I mean, again, I went with my personal top 5, not the whole, like, who has the most Super Bowls, all that nonsense. I went with Brady, of course, you got to put him in there. John Elway's personal favorite. Joe Montana. Johnny Unitas. I got a 5th spot. I mean, Lamar Jackson. No, I'm joking. But I got 1 spot left. You tell me I got to choose between Peyton Manning, Warren Moon, and Dan Marino. I don't think it's as easy as people make it seem.
He's top 3 at least.
Young, Montana, Brady, Peyton Manning, and Marino. And if you want to order for me, I got Brady first. I got Peyton second, Montana third, Marino fourth, and then Steve Young.
I have the same, except I'm with O and put Warren Moon in there as 5th.
So who's out?
Steve Young.
Steve Young's out.
Yeah, basically the same.
Yeah. Kevin, you need to watch some more tapes.
I said my top 5. It's the same thing with rap, right? It's not the best, but it's your top 5. So,
all right.
Hey, has to Dan Marino. This segment was to give him that credit.
Let's get to the S. Carter collection.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's my turn, and seeing as how tomorrow is actually the born day of one Sean Jay-Z Carter, and he did a song on the Black Album, December the 4th. This is for Rob Gronkowski. They say they never really miss you till you dead or you gone. So on that note, I'm leaving after this song. So you ain't got to feel no way about Grand K so long. At least let me tell you why I'm this way. Hold on. Goes to Rob Gronkowski because this past weekend, November 30th to be exact, was the deadline for Gronk to file paperwork if he wanted to be taken off of the team's reserve list. That paperwork was not filed. Instead, he was in Dallas at the chill Dallas Bar and Grill, dancing with his brothers and several chicks. The week before, he was filling in for the Laker girls, along with Venus Williams. Goodbye to the game, all the spoils, the adrenaline rush, and it's nobody's fault I made the decisions I made. This is the life I chose, or rather the life that chose me. Maybe if you can't respect that, your whole perspective is whack. Maybe you'll love me when I fade to black. If you can't respect that, your whole perspective is whack. Maybe you'll love me when I fade to black. The New England Patriots, suffice it to say, they love Rob Gronkowski, specifically Tom Brady, because he's got no weapons, and they're about to fade to black.
Hey, man, I agree with you, but this very week last year, we had a segment where we said, which team is in more trouble, the Los Angeles Rams or the New England Patriots? And them motherfuckers both made it to the Super Bowl.
You want to have that segment again and have that discussion again?
It's a real discussion right now, too.
Right,
It's a real discussion.
All right, let's continue our NFL's Worst 100 TLA style. Last week, we started this is the 100th anniversary of the National Football League, and they are celebrating their top 100 players. We want to take it the other way and acknowledge, I can't use the term that Kevin used earlier today, but we want to acknowledge some sorry players for each of the teams. The strategy or the game plan is we're going to go through each team. We're going to nominate who we feel like are the 3 worst players in each franchise's history, and then we will cap it off after our Super Bowl episode and acknowledge and nominate our 4 worst players ever in NFL history. Today we're covering the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Colts, and the Niners. First up, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs, Junior Blue.
All right, so what I have for them first up, and I kind of like this one, it was Chester McGlockton.
That's funny.
In 1998, the Chiefs actually signed him away from the Raiders for 5 years, $30 million in 98. So think about that. The previous 5 seasons, he had averaged, as a defensive tackle, he had averaged 7 sacks and 55 tackles. In his 3 years that he played with Kansas City, because that's one of the guidelines, he had a total of 7 sacks and never had more than 34 tackles. And he lasted 3 of the 5 years of the contract, and they couldn't wait to get rid of him. So that was the first one.
Okay.
Next one, we have Ryan Sims.
Remember him?
Ryan Sims.
North Carolina.
Yep. 5 years he played for Kansas City. He started 36 games, had 64 tackles in 36 games and 5 sacks.
That's not even 2 tackles a game.
It's not. It's 1.8. With the math.
And what position did he play?
He played defensive tackle.
If tackle is in your position, you're not tackling.
You're not doing your job.
You're not doing your job.
And what makes it worse is in the next 9 picks of the 2002 draft, you had John Henderson, Dwight Freeney, and Albert Hainsworth.
Wow.
So that is the top 2. Now, number one, it plays with Dan Marino also, because in 1983 draft, the Kansas City Chiefs took Todd Blackledge.
Yes, of ABC Sports.
So, with the number 7 pick, so 20 picks ahead of Dan Marino, Mr. Blackledge never completed more than 50% of his passes.
Wait a minute. So you telling me weed is what made Dan Marino drop?
This is 83. It was reefer.
Reefer. Reefer. Hashtag reefer.
So Between 84 and 85, he started 23 games. In those 23 games, he had 12 touchdowns and 25 interceptions.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's number one on that list.
Trash.
And they could have had Jim Kelly or Dan Marino.
Or either one. Pick one.
Pick one. So,
next up, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That is indeed me. So looking for a loop there. All right. So first and foremost, I'm starting with who is known as the worst quarterback in Steelers history. Mason Rudolph was going to be on this list, but he does not meet the minimum game requirement. So
wait for it.
Hey, he's got 7 more games to play, and he'll be on this list. But Mr. Mark Malone, first round pick out of Arizona State. He lost 24 of his 45 starts with the Steelers through 54 touchdowns, but 68 interceptions during the 7 seasons with the Steelers. The fact that this lasted this long still surprises me. He threw 37 of those picks in the last 2 seasons, which is like Brock Osweiler,
Eli Manning,
Phillip Rivers,
Jay Cutler type. You see where this is going. Yeah. He's definitely on that list. Second, I went with Mr. Troy Edwards, wide receiver out of Louisiana Tech.
Louisiana Tech. Yes.
13th overall, 1999. He had a solid rookie season. I'll give him that. But absolutely nothing. And I mean, absolutely nothing after that. And I kind of looked at this the same way Les did at the picks that came, after him. Javon Curse was just a few picks later. If you wanted a wide receiver, Donald Driver was on the board. Ask Omar. Marty Booker had a more productive career for the Chicago Bears than Troy Edwards had. And so, last but not least, I think the worst draft pick, the worst player in Steelers history. Look, I wanted to keep this a little more contemporary and go with Mr. Artie Burns, thanks to Devin. But after reading a little bit more about his personal story, and just the things he's gone through in life, I couldn't do that. It didn't feel right. Although his last name is very indicative of how because Artie gets
burned.
I have a quote from about 11 years ago from Mr. Todd McShay, who said that 10 years from now, we're going to say that this player was the most productive and most talented wide receiver in the 2008 NFL draft class. Todd McShay was talking about none other than Mr. Limas Swede, who was the second round pick for the Steelers, right out of Texas. He had 7 total receptions in 3 seasons, 0 touchdowns. Now, he did have an astigmatism in his eye, which could have contributed to the fact that he couldn't see the ball before he caught it. But nonetheless, that is your profession, Mr. Swede. He was drafted before Pierre Garçon was in that draft. And if we compare that to his career to Mr. McShay's statement, we had 628 career catches, 38 career total touchdowns. Mr. Pierre Garçon, which is 38 times more touchdowns than Limas Swede had. So, for a team that has a lot of talent, a lot of wide receivers, at least more recently, Troy Edwards and Limas Swede, man. Given what else was on the board and when they were drafted, Steelers got to account for this.
Dev, you had Baltimore's former team, the Colts of Indianapolis.
The Indianapolis football team, yes. And I kept it strictly with Indianapolis players since they want to try and claim shit that isn't theirs. Number 3, I'm going to say someone who has one of the biggest guns of all time, Mr. Jeff George, who was selected number 1.
Really, Jeff George?
In the 90 draft. Not really due to his play, because he had decent numbers, but it's about his attitude. He's completely uncoachable, not to mention at the time in 90, he signed the biggest rookie contract in NFL history, 6 years, $15 million. He never got along with any of his coaches. He only went 14-35 as a starter and only lasted 4 of those 6 seasons. So that's 3. Number 2, Trev Alberts, outside linebacker, Nebraska. He was taken 5th overall in the 94 draft. He was a consensus All-American, Buckus Award winner, Lambert Trophy winner. He barely met the requirements. He only played 3 seasons. He had 26 professional games, and after winning all those awards in college as the 5th overall pick, he only had 6.5 sacks as an outside linebacker. And this is the 94 or the 93-94 Nebraska Cornhuskers, where they were just dominant and had NFL players all over the place.
Right.
So he's number 2. Number 1 is Steve Emtman,
Yes.
D tackle from Washington.
He might be a candidate for the Final Four. He might make it to the Final Four.
Just might. He was taken number 1 overall in the 92 draft. And just like Alberts, he won many awards, the Outland, Lombardi, Bill Willis, and he won the Morris Trophy twice. And he was also a consensus All-American. Now, injuries got the better of him playing on that terrible turf in Indy. He only played 3 seasons and 18 games with the team before moving on to playing only 32 more games with the Dolphins and the team from Washington. So this was 1992 when he was drafted. He retired in 1997 with 8 career sacks. 8. Bum. Trash. So he's the number 1 bum for that franchise.
Yeah, Steve Emtman. Yeah, I think we'll be revisiting that later.
Because the hype around him was real.
It was real.
And that
Trash. I have the San Francisco 49ers at 3, a kicker. And I remember this kicker because as a kid,
Hold on. I think I know this.
I grew up a 49ers fan. Mr. Mike Kofer.
Yes.
Oh, Mike Kofer, come on down, buddy. So, drafted in 88, and he started out great. I shouldn't say great. He started out good. 71% of his field goals he made. It was 19th in the league. 1989, he got better. Up to 80%. He was 5th in the league in field goals. And then the bottom fell all the way out. 1990, 66% of his field goals converted for 27th in the league. It gets worse. 1991, 50% on field goals. Successful field goals. 50%, dead last. 1992, back up to 66%. 1993, back down to 61%. For context, today in the league-wide average of made field goals is 80%. It's 53% for field goals of 50 yards or longer. He was 50%, period. So he's number 3, Mr. Mike Kofer. Oh, and to make it worse, the Niners got rid of him in 93. He goes to the Colts in 94, 44% field goals made. He's trash. Runner-up, and I remember this guy. At this point, I don't think I was a Niners fan, but I just remember because anytime his name was called, and Les will appreciate him, it was always going to be a penalty if it was any type of offensive line penalty. Mr. Kwame Harris. Let me start off by saying, if you are a professional athlete and your name is Kwame, you got bust written all over you. Kwame Harris was actually highly touted out of Stanford. Big brain, big body, big brawn. Entering the 2003 draft, he was ranked as the 2nd highest tackle according to NFL Draft Scout. He was a good run blocker, and he was healthy. His 5 years there at San Francisco, he was known for false starts, holding penalties, terrible pass protection. According to Stats Incorporated, he allowed 8.5 sacks in 2006 with 4 holding penalties and 1 false start. In 2005, he allowed 9.5 sacks, committed 15 penalties, 7 of them false. After he got done with San Francisco, he went to Les's Raiders and gave them more of the same. The number 1 worst player in San Francisco 49er franchise history, wide receiver out of UCLA, 10th pick in the draft. And I remember him very vividly as well because he had butterfingers. J.J. Stokes. J.J. Stokes was drafted because he was supposed to be the one to replace Jerry Rice. In that same draft, in the 5th round, I believe.
6th?
Not 5th. third or fifth round, they took Terrell Owens, who ended up being the Jerry Rice replacement. But no, J.J. Stokes was the one that they wanted. What makes J.J. Stokes so bad is that San Francisco gave up a bunch of picks to draft him. They gave up their own first-round pick along with a third-round pick. In addition to doing that, they also gave up the following 1996 first-round pick to the Baltimore Ravens. Who did Baltimore take with that first-round pick? They took Ray Lewis. All right. J.J. Stokes, over his 8-year career in San Francisco, 327 catches, 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. His best seasons came in 97, 98, and 2000, and he never broke the 1,000-yard receiving mark at any point in his career. He complained a lot. He dropped a lot of balls. He was the biggest bust.
J.J. Stokes.
Trash.
That's a running theme for this segment.
Yeah, we just shitting on people's lives.
All right. Let's continue our prescription for the sick ones. As we get winding down towards the regular season, NFL. It's time to identify some teams that we know have no shot at making it on to the next round in the playoffs and sort of give them an off-season treatment so that maybe they can try again next year.
Cast those demons out.
Yes. We've got on tap for this week the New York Jets, who lost to the Cincinnati Bengals 22-6. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just continue to lose. They lost to Tampa Bay this Sunday. They're out. The Carolina Panthers, who I'm sure Kevin will talk about the latest and greatest in that franchise. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we'll all tackle the Los Angeles Chargers. I feel like we all have the same prescription for that organization. We'll start with the New York Jets, Dev. How can they get better?
They went out last offseason and they did some work. They spent some money. They spent some money.
They did.
It hasn't come to fruition. But in 2020, they have 40 players under contract.
Okay.
But they have $62 million in cap space next year. They've got talent at the young quarterback. They have Le'Veon Bell, who's a talent. But none of that shit works if you don't have an O-line. And they need O-line help. They're 31st in the league in rushing with Le'Veon, and they're third in the league in giving up sacks at 46. Young QBs, especially someone that's turnover prone, needs to be protected. They also need their running game to work. And it starts with that. Only 2 linemen are under contract for next year, and it's not working.
Right.
They traded the Ravens with us. They got Alex Lewis. He's not going to be under contract next year. That shit's not working. They also need a solid tight end, which is a security blanket for all young QBs, so they can open up lanes for Le'Veon, and they can use the speed of Crowder and Robbie Anderson, who is trying to secure the bag. Right now, the free agent tight ends that are going to come up are Ebron and Doyle, who are both on the same team. Indy's not going to get both of them. So go after one of those. You also got Tyler Eifert, who's someone's securing the bag if you want to risk that.
Nah, B.
And then you also have Hunter Henry that's coming up because we know somebody's going to get to it, but the Chargers are fucking cheap. So who knows if they're going to pay him. So I think it starts from the inside, the line, and you got to get Darnold a security blanket so he can have something to lean on. I think it starts with that. Other than that, they have a shit ton of things to work on and build, but I think you can't fix everything at once, so let's start with that.
Are we bringing back Adam Gase for another year?
Oh, no, he's trash. I don't know who you get, though. I think they'd be better off if they had Bunny. Adam Gates is clearly proving that he's not a good head coach in this league. I mean, if you look at what Tannehill's doing, and he was supposed to be an offensive guru, that's not working out. The Jets are just, you don't know what you're going to get. Yes, they have avoided talent, but they do have some pieces, but you can't go out and beat a hot team like the Raiders by damn near 30, and they get blitzkrieged by a team that's trying to tank. Like, where do we fall? I mean, I know it's any given Sunday, but that's hot. That's too hot and cold.
I agree. Junior Blue, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The Jags are in trouble. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, they lost Nick Foles the first game of the year. They had their rookie Minshew come in,
Right.
and he played well. But when you give someone $88 million,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to give you his job back. So they gave Nick Foles his job back. It lasted a game and a half, and now Gardner Minshew's back.
Yep.
They literally have $6 million in cap space. If they cut Nick Foles, it costs $33 million in dead money on the cap.
So that's not going to happen.
If they trade him, it's $19 million still on the cap.
Mm.
So they're pretty much stuck with him. Well, people always trade. I mean, Osweiler got traded, so maybe it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to free up any money for them to get better. What I actually say is it's about time for them to blow it up. 3 years ago, they spent a lot of money on good players.
Mm-hmm.
AJ Bayou, the cornerback,
Right.
Calais Campbell,
Yep.
Malik Jackson, who's gone now.
Yep.
They spent money on players who were playing well, and that first year, they balled out.
Right.
Now, they're overpriced veterans. And when you have a team that has a rookie quarterback and a whole bunch of overpriced veterans who aren't playing up to the level, like they're not stopping anybody.
Right.
So what do you do with that? You start cutting them, weeding that out, trading them if you can. Calais Campbell will get you a second or a third rounder. He's on the last year where it actually account money on his cap.
Mm-hmm.
AJ, you'll save $9 million if you cut him.
Mm-hmm.
You already got rid of Jalen because you couldn't pay him.
Couldn't pay him.
So at this point, it is time to cut all the fat off
Mm-hmm.
and basically start over.
Is Tom Coughlin and Doug Maroney part of the fat too?
No, I think they could rebuild it. I feel like they tried to rebuild on the fly,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked for one season.
You get the AFC Championship.
You got to the
game.
AFC Championship game, and honestly, coached differently, they probably coach the second half differently. They probably win that game.
Their defense though is still respectable. They're not getting production, but maybe because they're not responding to their coaching.
I still feel. I mean, even just watching them play,
Uh-huh.
I don't see like 2 or 3 years ago they were dominant.
Right.
These players are no longer dominant, and you're paying them as dominant players.
Got it.
You can't. You'll never win like that. And you're already cash strapped with Nick Foles, who you gave an insane amount of money to.
That's where I think that they're fucked.
Yeah, I mean,
because you have a quarterback that now needs to play. He's played his first year. You might as well let him play, but you cannot have a $30 million backup.
Yep.
What if I told you that Nick Foles, who got benched at halftime for a rookie, and the Eagles, who lost to the fucking Dolphins, were together and won a Super Bowl 2 years ago? Like, yo, that shit feels like it was a decade ago. And now look what Nick Foles is. This is times change, man.
And to your point, Doug Peterson is 15-15 since that game.
Mm.
But we'll talk about Philly, I'm sure, next week.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Division.
That'll be week 16.
That's true. Kev, you got the Carolina Panthers.
I do. And as of this afternoon, Panthers need a new coach. They sent Ron Rivera packing, put him out of his misery. Thank God. I think we all saw this coming. And the owner, David Tepper, who has made changes to the organization as of late, thought it was time to make sweeping changes on the football end as well. I think that Marty Herney stays. Is currently the GM. I don't know if he serves the same role next year, but I definitely think he stays on board because Tepper likes him. I think he's a smart football guy. You got an owner like this who just recently, got involved with the team. He's going to keep the guys that he can trust. But then I think after coach, immediately we look at Mr. Cam Newton, who has never played for another head coach in his career. And since the Super Bowl, he played 46 starts, and Cam has been sacked 106 times. I think if you're a owner who needs a new coach, bringing a new coach, the coach is going to win his own quarterback, which means I think this is it for Cam Newton, especially because if they cut him, it's a $2 million cap hit, which you compare that to what it is for Nick Foles, and this is a win situation. If you're looking to rebuild. So I definitely think Tempa's going to go in that direction, get his own coach. Coach is going to win his own quarterback. If you look at coordinators that are out there that are hot and should be coveted in the offseason, we got Minnesota's offensive coordinator, Stefanski. I hate to say this, but Ravens coordinator Greg Roman, who is doing a marvelous job here with the Ravens. You got the Niners defensive coordinator, who's getting a lot of looks. The Bills offensive coordinator, who is turning their young quarterback into a respectable quarterback this time of the season. But I think if with the position you're in right now, you fire your coach and like, look, we got 4 games left. We got Kyle Allen here. We're gonna see what he's made of these last 4 games and decide if this is something we can build around. If not, then I think you're kind of in a tough situation looking at the quarterbacks that are on the draft board. If they're going to be around, I would say between maybe like 12 and 18 in terms of draft picks. If you can get one of those guys, they're going to have about $40 million in cap space. So I'm not a big fan. You can see, again, not to keep harping on Nick Foles, but you can see what going out and get a veteran quarterback can do for you. I think in this league, you either start fresh or you think, can you bring in a guy who can build around Kyle Allen and start from there? But yeah, the Panthers are turning a new leaf this season.
I don't think the problem is so much that you go get a veteran quarterback. I think it's fine. You just don't pay a veteran quarterback $22 million per year. I think that every year, and I feel this about all teams in professional sports, they can reset the market, especially at a position at quarterback where I've been saying all year to you guys, we're going to have some really good backup quarterbacks coming up in the near future because you still have young quarterbacks coming into the league, but you look at a Ryan Tannehill, you look at a Teddy Bridgewater, where's Andy Dalton going to go? You've got Cam Newton that's going to be out there. There's going to be an assortment, dare I say even a plethora of veteran quarterbacks that have played, and so I think you've just got to be responsible about how much money, you pay them.
Yeah, and I think for Carolina, that starts with Phillip Rivers because he is no longer a reliable starting quarterback in this league, and the ties with North Turner, assuming if he stays, that's an option you can go, but it's not a long-term solution.
Right.
We're going to get to him.
We're going to stay in the NFC South. I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and actually when I look at their situation, I think their hardest decision, their hardest choice is what to do with Jameis Winston. And honestly, I don't think it's a hard thing at all. I think Jameis is who he is. Daddy Bruce came in and he's still turning the ball over, leads the league in interceptions. It's pretty clear you cut bait with him. You've got $90 million in cap space. Tampa Bay's got money to spend. Their defense for a good portion of the season was very good at stopping the run. They were terrible and still are terrible against the pass. So you've got to get secondary help. You've got Marcus Peters. You've got Byron Jones. You've got Chris Harris. Get you one of those corners. At the safety spot, you've got Jimmy Ward out of San Francisco that's going to be a free agent. Ha Clinton Dix, Von Bell. Get you a safety out of that group. Re-sign Ndamukong Suh, and you can probably get him on a short-term deal. We still got money left here, folks. Go get Melvin Gordon. Stop, listen, Ronald Jones, he is who he is. Bruce Arians just benched him Sunday because he missed a blitz pickup. Bruce said, listen, you miss a blitz pickup, you're coming on the bench.
Yeah, especially with Jameis.
Listen, Peyton Barber's done. He's a free agent. You don't re-sign him. Go upgrade, get Melvin Gordon, and then go get Teddy Bridgewater. Go get somebody that Tampa Bay has never seen before. Someone that's not going to turn the ball over. Because that's all they need. With Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they got the tight ends, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. They're not far off. They really aren't. And this is the perfect time for them to spend the money. They got their picks, address the secondary, go get somebody like Bridgewater, go get Melvin Gordon to upgrade the talent in the backfield. And now you look at Carolina, most likely a rebuild situation. Atlanta is definitely going to get rid of Dan Quinn. You're right back in the mix.
Fight for my fucking life. That division is a bomb fight.
Yeah, you're right. You're right back in the mix, and I think Bruce Arians, is right there with Sean Payton in terms of being one of the better coaches in the division. So they're not far away, and this is a great opportunity to really spend some money responsibly. Finally, we have the the Los Angeles Chargers.
San Diego.
San Diego
For
Chargers. For now, right.
Keon's abandoned sons.
That's right. I'm leaving them there. I mean, I'll just start it off by saying, listen, they need to fire their training staff. Get a training staff. If they had health, they would have at least had a Super Bowl appearance, if not a Super Bowl title. Just if you just look at the 20-year history, just the most recent 20 years, they need to take a serious look at this training staff. Devin has been saying it forever.
Since season 1. They went 12-4 last year.
And it's basically the same team. Now, granted, Phillip Rivers
It has regressed.
Not the same.
is not the same. So what are we doing with Phillip Rivers?
Oh, we sent him on his farewell tour these last 4 weeks. You know, shake some hands, kiss some babies,
Okay.
and get the fuck on.
Okay.
That commute is probably was killing him. He's still living in San Diego. He's commuting to Orange County every day, which is silly. I think
Not when you have 15 kids.
Right.
I mean, we have FaceTime now. It's 2019. You can put babies to bed on FaceTime.
Military
Military
trying to work on more babies.
Yeah, military parents do it all the time. Whoa, that's where the problem is. He loves it.
He's shooting his load.
He leaves it in. He leaves it in the oven a little too long. I think at this point, I think you look at drafting a quarterback, but I think you play Tyrod right now. That's a bridge quarterback.
Really?
Yeah, I think you played.
I think
Tyrod was warming up the other day. I think he gives them a better chance. They're inventing new ways to lose each week.
and they've been doing it for years.
Yeah. So I think Tyrod is. Look what happened in Cleveland. Perfect bridge quarterback.
To what?
Yeah, I was saying on the other side of that bridge.
Junior Blue, Tyrod or Cam Newton?
I don't know what Cam Newton is.
Tyrod or Andy Dalton?
Tyrod.
We know what Andy Dalton is.
Yeah, I'm going with Tyrod because I feel like you need a young. They have young weapons. They have their defense is young. Like I don't think
It's right there.
Yeah, but does Andy Dalton put him over the top?
Andy Dalton's not bad.
A healthy Cam Newton,
But they already
I
have
think-
Tyrod under contract, so why not utilize it?
but a healthy Cam Newton is better than Tyrod.
I just
we know
think
he's not gonna
that
be healthy.
we saw Tyrod last year with Cleveland. Tyrod has limitations.
right.
You know what I mean?
So does Phillip Rivers right
But
now.
no,
we're not talking about we're past Phil. Phil's
yeah,
gone.
Yeah,
He's
out the
gone.
pasture.
And I think the bridge, when you talk about the bridge, here's a name for you, and I only got the first name of it, Tua, because he's gonna drop. You draft Tua, you
Yeah.
sit him for a year.
And then you play
that's the
Tyrod.
bridge.
But that's when Tyrod plays.
But I need somebody that's won a playoff game. That's what I'm saying.
Not that many of them out there that are just laying around.
Yeah.
And the ones that are
because Andy
hurt.
Dalton's not one of them.
He's never won a playoff game. The franchise barely has. And then we don't know what we're getting out of Cam. And we don't know what
Because
Teddy's going
honestly,
somewhere.
Tyrod is lesser Teddy Bridgewater. He's not going to turn the ball over. He's going to
killing
make
them.
he's going to make safe plays.
He's ultra safe though.
Yeah.
Well, what's name got 15 interceptions and throws them away at the end of the game. So I mean,
Right.
he has
Yeah,
17
you gotta
touchdown
take a
passes
struggle.
and 15 interceptions. So he's not winning it by throwing touchdowns plus throwing the ball away. He's just not doing it.
I'm just saying they have the weapons that they have in Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Those are down the field weapons. And check down Tyrod.
Austin Eckler leads running backs in touchdown receptions.
I mean, that's who would want Tyrod to be the quarterback is Austin Eckler because he would probably catch 150 balls. Kev, what's your prescription for the Chargers?
I think, and more so to Devin's point about them inventing ways to lose for years, they're entering the stratosphere of the Washington football team where, like, I'm strongly considering, like, sell a team or, like, change the logo. Like, these are issues that players cannot fix. I'm not one necessarily believe in curses, but, like, this is an organizational issue. No matter who's at quarterback, no matter if they wear the powder blues or not, no matter what kicker they bring in, no matter what coach, I'm not sold on Anthony Lynn. I'm just, you have to completely strip this thing down to the studs. I do agree. I think someone like Tyrod could be the bridge until they bring someone in. I think Tua will be a great pick if they can get late in the rounds or any young quarterback late in the rounds. But this is not going to get solved within a year or two, no matter how close they are from a roster standpoint. They are fucking cursed. Did y'all see how they lost that game against Denver? Everyone knew they were going to lose. We didn't know how. But we knew they were going to lose in the final seconds because that's what the Chargers do, and it's going to continue until they do something from a structural standpoint that's going to change the way we look at this organization.
You got to pay your fucking talent too, cheap bastards.
Let's get to our Brexit boot bag winner before we get to our game picks. Dev, take it away.
All right, so imagine living in a world where you have unlimited resources available. The internet, smartphones, libraries, social media, and not knowing who Pete Rose is or what happened to him. Enter one Joshua James Shaw, defensive back for the Arizona Cardinals. Shaw placed bets on the second half outcomes of 3 games in Week 10. That's called a parlay.
That's called a parlay.
He might have teased it.
This wasn't his first time, by the way.
Oh no!
Including in that Week 10 parlay, it was the Bucs versus the Cardinals, which I mentioned he plays for the Arizona Cardinals, and he bet against his own team. This is a quote by Roger Goodell. If you work in the NFL in any capacity, you may not bet on NFL games. He also didn't try very hard to hide the gambling, as he listed professional football player on the application for his Caesars betting account. Now, this may sound silly, but not really if you know Josh. This is the same cat,
Yes.
while at USC, fight on, told the Trojans that he hurt his ankles jumping out of a 2-story window to save his drowning nephew, when in fact he jumped out the window because the cops were called because he was arguing with his girlfriend. To add insult to injury, Shaw lost the bet in Week 10 because the Bucs didn't cover. He has also not suited up all year as he's been on IR, and now he is suspended indefinitely, and at least through the 2020 season. And for that, Mr. Shaw, you are the Brexit bootbag winner. Golf clap for this idiot.
Stupid motherfucker. Hey, it's America, Jack. I ain't mad at him, but you gotta be more buttoned up than that, man.
I mean,
Some people are just prone to fuck up.
clearly.
He one of them. Let's get to our game picks.
Ooh, let's take a look at the records.
Yeah, it's getting late early. I feel like I say that every week, but I mean it this time. He's stretching out a little bit. He's got a 2-game lead over Omar. Les and I are holding up the rear. Kevin is hanging around.
There's another error for Les. I gotta fix that. My bad.
79.
Yo, stop leaving Devin, who's in the lead, responsible for picks.
Hey, I just ended it wrong, B. That's all.
We've got some good games this weekend. Omar, Chicago Bears. Don't look now, but they are 6-6.
Ooh-wee.
Anything can happen.
Can they get to my 11-5? No.
Nah. That ship sailed. This Thursday, they are hosting the Dallas Cowboys, who, yeah, man, I don't even know what to say. Kevin, who you got?
2 teams that I'm fucking tired of talking about. Dallas.
Dallas Bears can't score.
Dallas. I mean, you look at the Bears. They beat the Lions by 4 with who at quarterback, and they beat the Giants by 5. So, Dallas got them.
I got to bust a move. It's Thursday night. I'm taking the home team, Chicago. They got the momentum. They won on Thursday. Dallas did not.
Stop selling that shit.
Well, I'm taking the Bears at home. Kansas City, New England. Big game in the AFC.
Yep.
Somebody wants to trample on the king while the king is down. Kansas City, New England. Junior Blue.
KC. I don't think New England's offense hands can reach that high.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh.
I like that.
That's the pearls.
That's one of those lessons there.
I agree with Junior Blue. They can't keep up.
Yeah.
Can't score.
Kevin?
I agree. Mahomes isn't going to lose to them again. KC.
Yeah, this is revenge. This is kicking them while they're down. I like Kansas City as well. Biggest game of the weekend, San Francisco 49ers. They are closing out their trifecta. They started out at home against Green Bay. They did what they needed to do. Respectable showing in Baltimore. And now they conclude going against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Dad, who you got?
The Saints defense is top 5 in rushing and number 4 in sacks.
Okay.
And they're playing in the Dome. I'm going with the Saints.
Going with the Saints. Kevin?
What's the temperature inside the Dome?
It's
72 or 70? Okay. I know the Niners they usually show up in nice weather. I'll still go with the Saints.
I got the Saints too.
You got the Saints?
Yeah. Make your move.
I'm picking the Niners.
Yeah.
I'm picking the Niners. Kiko Alonso, AJ Klein got hurt. They went out and got Manti Te'o. And I said this to Devin on Sunday, I feel like sometimes Sean Payton gets a little bit bored with the play calling. I trust Kyle Shanahan to run. They're a great running football team to run at those weak linebackers and also to pick
in the league in rushing defense.
Also, and AJ Klein and Kiko Alonso are not playing.
I really like the Niners though,
and I trust him to pick on Eli Apple because that apple is rotten.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I like the Niners in a little bit of an upset. All right, this has been another episode of 32 Kings Road. Red-O, get back. We will see you next week.
Some of us
got
will.
the runs too.
No, not that. Cheerio.
Cheers, mate. Blackbird Gang, bitches.
We busted in. We broke down the door. We came to win. TLA season 4. It's a whole new game. We the agents of change. Whole new scope with a whole new range. It didn't exist, so we built our own lane. We all knew the risk. It's a cold ass game. But first and foremost, we reppin' the fans because we nothing but fans living out our dreams. Crossing the pond with these 32 teams. There's only one road and there's only 5 kings.